Hello there. Welcome everybody to Spin Legal Tonight. It's Wednesday, 26th of March, 2025. What are you doing to 25, Angela?
What was that?
It's almost a quarter over now.
God. Yeah, well, difficult, just progressive and difficult and knee scraping.
Yeah, just get it back, will you? Catch it back. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, and today we're going to be, okay, welcome to Spin Legal on March 26, 2025, episode 59 with Angela and myself. And we're partners at Invictus Legal LLP. And our topic tonight is lawyers, paralegals, and client confidentiality. Okay. So, of course, I'm going to give you our standard intro. If you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so at 905-688-5598, or you can you can email Angela at weareinvictus.legal, or myself at Peter at weareinvictus.legal. Or go to the website at https weareinvictus.legal. Okay. Information today about, hi, so if I engage a lawyer or paralegal, it's normally because something has gone wrong in my life. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see too many people come into our office and say life is wonderful and that the tenants are great, or the recent purchase of their house went really well, or that their landlord is wonderful. We don't hear that much.
Two types of lawyers you might get who are dealing with wonderful life might well be people who are dealing, well, three types of lawyers that might be dealing with wonderful life is if you're buying a house, right? You're buying a house, you speak with a real estate closing lawyer who pretty well only does that.
Business lawyer.
A business lawyer, if you're acquiring a business or something, that's another possibility. Maybe you're selling your business, maybe you're buying another business, right? That's a happy state of affairs. But I think there's many other things like criminal law, landlords kicking you out of your apartment. Yeah. That's not very happy, is it?
The majority of people who practice in the law, we don't have a lot of great people walking in and say, hey, everything's wonderful. Because then what we do is we receive what's called a clinical sample of the population. Yeah, they come from all walks of life, but there's still a clinical sample.
Yeah, but you see, here's the thing, Angela. We were talking about this earlier on today. It's like if people were to ask us, a pollster were to come up to you, and the question is, Angela, how would you view people based upon the people you've seen in the last 3 months? How do you view people's role in society? Are they good, bad, or in the pits? And you'd be going, well, 100% of the people I've seen have got problems in the world.
Yep. 100% of the people are either facing somebody that is creating a lot of problems for them, or they come here so that they can create some problems for other people.
That's the truth, right? And we deal with people who've got problems slung on them, and we help people sling problems on other people, don't we?
Yeah. Or we can even third-party action. So if somebody's being sued, then we can file a defense, and then we can third-party somebody else and bring them into the action.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't. It was her all along. Oh no, this is where my friend Rue is in the room, right? Because he's my third party. He's the third
yes.
Party. And you've got Rue, hi Rue, and Joey, little Joey here.
Little Joey, right? Yes.
Yeah, Rue and Joey. They're my third party for the day. Okay?
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's a kangaroo.
We won't be making any more statements other than that. Hi, Rue.
Hi, Rue.
We'll be with you in a while. All right? Mm-hmm. So you're my third party for today. Okay. So here's a question. So client comes in to you and says, what I say really matters to me.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like this is my most important problem of the day. If you don't solve it for me, in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to lose my life. Well, probably not that desperate, but
Mm-hmm.
you get the gist. I think everybody gets the gist of where we're coming from here.
Mm-hmm. People come to us. They entrust us with their worst fears, their worst problems, their worries, that type of thing, and they confide in us about a lot of different things.
And that could well be from the kind of, oh, my landlord's throwing me out of my house, to the police have just arrested me for murder. Right? We don't deal with the latter as a paralegal, but a lawyer does. And what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about here is largely across border, whether you're engaging a lawyer or a paralegal, anyway.
Yeah,
The same
because we
basic.
cover the whole spectrum. We work with lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, what we're talking about here today is about client confidentiality.
Yeah.
So yeah, what matters to you as a client matters to us as your representative. So, and we'll explain what that means during the course of this evening. So it's a valid question, but the client might say, who will you tell my story to? All right, Angela.
Yeah, this is very important. Like people come in and they're saying, is everything I tell you, is it confidential? You're not going to write it down anywhere. You're not going to tell my landlord. You're not going to. Absolutely. Like what you're telling me.
Now, okay, so I bring out my trusted book, and I do write to take a lot of notes, and I write it down, and the client involved in this particular book, yeah, I'm not even going to say their name right now because I can't.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Like I've had people try to call me and is so and so a client of yours? I can't even say whether they're a client of mine.
Yeah.
Right? Because the thing is, that's also confidential. I can't say to somebody who just randomly calls the office to ask me if Joe Smith is a client of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's an important factor. But I saw them coming out of your office yesterday. Our office, there's at least 3 other firms in our office, in the office space, not the office space. I mean, in our floor of the office.
Our building is a big building.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you know they came out of our office and not out of the lift next door to our office?
Yeah. And how you know they weren't meeting up with one of the workers who were working upstairs and putting in apartment buildings, which hopefully will be reasonably priced so that we can get some housing in this area.
Yeah. Okay. So the point being is that we won't be telling your story to anybody. Yes, we build big folders like these, right? We build big folders. We save all the information that you give us in folders because that's how we need to do that to work.
Yeah. We take our notes, we put them in folders, and we put them up onto a cloud.
Yeah.
Okay. That means that this is stored somewhere else and it's under security. Okay. So that we can download it. If I go home, I don't have to take my file with me. I go home and I look at the cloud. And then I work on that to see if there's something I can do with that. And then I come back in. That's what I did yesterday. I just wrote up some stuff and I wrote a draft letter on behalf of a client based on information that I have on a cloud.
But Angela, while you've just been talking, I've just gathered 6 files in my hand. So you can imagine without the cloud, I'm going to be taking these 6 files home with me tonight. In order
I hope not. Generally, well, the partners of the firm, I mean, that's kind of different. But if you were an associate or an employee, probably not. Yeah. Because we want to make sure we know where our files are.
Yeah. I was talking about client safety. And in fact, actually, probably the safest place for these files right now is right here on my desk.
Yeah, right on your desk where they can be knocked over and...
No, we're not spilling coffee on the client files. If I catch you doing that, you'll be in trouble. I'll be fighting you. Yeah. And well, but that has happened in the past.
Yeah.
We know that, right?
And also too, if clients have, like, we generally, what we do when a client comes in with all their information, we photocopy all the information while they're here,
Yeah.
and then we give them back their originals.
Well,
So the clients will know or have an idea of what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we take a step.
There's one exception to that. I had a client came in hurried last week because they brought me the information that they had to hurry away because they were catching a bus. They said, it's okay, when I come back next week I'll pick it up from you.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. They
I have the envelope right here, right, ready for them to come in this week. They haven't yet told me when they're coming in, but I know they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they'll be picking up their envelope when they come in because I've taken the copy already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not going to tell you a story about them, but but rest assured, I've got your paperwork, and I'm not going to tell anybody, right? Yep. Okay, well, there's a ruling out here. There's several areas really. As paralegals, we're subject to several guidelines. Guideline 8, Rule 3.03, and lawyers are subject to another rule called, so paralegal professional rules of conduct, and lawyers have got the rules of professional conduct. And ours is Rule 3.03, and theirs is Rule 3.31. 3.31. Yeah, there you go. Yep. And we'll get to
pretty well similar in character, although they might be having some different commentary, but they're similar in nature.
Yeah, they're they have the same basic meaning.
Yeah,
is that us as legal representatives can't give our details, can't give their details away. And what's important about Guideline 8 is it provides the obligation to protect client information. And that extends to information whether or not it is relevant or irrelevant to the matter on which the paralegal is engaged. So, for example, I'm dealing with Joey's landlord and tenant matter, but at the same time, Joey says, sometime after I'm engaged, Joey, I've worked with him now for 3 months, and he says to me, I've just been fired by my boss. The worst boss in the world, absolutely the worst boss you've ever had. I guarantee it, Peter. I need to speak to somebody who can deal with employment. And can I send you my stuff? I'm going to send it in the email. And so
Angela deals with this, and
I speak to him, and I say, Angela might be able to help you. And whether or not he engages Angela, that's entirely up to him.
Yeah. But I do a consult with the person to figure out, first of all, whether they have a case and whether it's something that they could pursue, and also where they could pursue it. So there's different ways like that. So these are things that we talk about. And then after that, then the client decides whether they wish to retain us to do something about it. If something can be.
Even if they come in on that particular day and say, oh, thank you very much, Angela, for that information. That's taught me a lot. But at the moment, I'm not going to retain you. Right?
Yeah.
We can't say.
You know what? We still have to maintain confidentiality of that consultation. And we also have to maintain conflict of interest check for that consultation.
And essentially, what we have to do is get that bit of tape and
You're gonna get your mustache ripped off.
You got to take your mouth shut once that client has said something to you.
Yeah.
Because
for example, I had a telephone conversation with somebody who was a prospective client that I probably would have already taken. Okay? But however, I've asked a number of details about the person and what their experience was and who the other parties were. And one of the other parties was somebody that if we were to take her case, we would be in a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And I had to advise her that we were in a conflict. I didn't tell her why we were in a conflict or who it was with, just that we were in a conflict of interest and we were not able to do this. And I suggested where she might want to look in terms of finding other counsel. Okay, so this is what I generally do with people. And I also advise them how much time they have to make a claim. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's a very important type of situation when people have, because we have to keep confidentiality and we also have to keep them getting engaged in a conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And confidentiality to anybody in the legal profession is important. It's a vital thing. We must all deal with it. And in fact, actually, one of the things that you've got to remember is that duty continues even after the client or former client dies. So,
Yep.
you helped somebody in 1972, Angela. I know you did, right? So you've got to keep their confidentiality,
Hmm.
even though they died last year.
I was in practice for almost 30 years, and I remember a lot of my clients. A few of them have died,
Mm.
but I still, you know, it's sacrosanct. You have to maintain that. Somebody has a question for us, Peter. Look at it,
They have a
LinkedIn.
question. They have a question. Really? Okay. So the question: do you feel that keeping only original digital copies is the best practice?
No, we don't only keep digital copies, but the physical copies remain in the office in lock file.
Yeah.
Right? We do
Well,
not have,
it depends. There's no reason
or
why.
if it's in Peter's office, he locks his door after he leaves for the day.
Well, but again, there's absolutely no reason why a practice can't be digital only. You know, get
Some
rid of
of them do, but
get rid
I
of the
would have problems because anything can happen to your computer.
oh, I know. Get rid of these blithering files. Make sure that they're all
Mhm.
on digital copies, and that blithering file becomes a nuisance when it's this big, right?
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it's that full,
yeah.
right?
But there's a lot of problems in relying only on digital. Hey, because what happens if your computer gets hacked?
Yeah,
What happens if you have something happens where it gets deleted, the file? Hey, all of us have been doing something stupid sometime where our we accidentally delete something on our computer, and now I can't find it. So I
yeah.
mean, we have to be really careful.
Well,
Yes, the digital has to be kept as securely as possible, and it has to be put into a reliable type of cloud. Okay. But what this purpose is, if I'm going to keep a hard copy file for you, I have everything uploaded to the digital screen. But the file here is in the office in case we have to do a backup.
and some people come in with these devices,
Oh, yes.
right?
Coming in with sticks.
And it's not. This is my personal one, this particular one, but often many people come in with these devices, USB sticks,
Hmm.
and we copy from the USB stick and we put it into the cloud.
Yep. And then we go here, and I have access to the cloud by just checking in my documents folder. So these things we do so that we do this. And to get into my computer, you need a password. Same as to get into anybody's computer here, we need a password.
Yeah.
So it's something that if somebody decides to wander around our office, they can't just go in there and dig into our computer, right?
Yeah. The other thing is, of course, I've had clients come in with these devices, right?
Yeah, which is
We
interesting.
stick the wire. We stick the wire in the bottom end, like right here, and
Hmm. And then they put them
we
onto our
copy the
screen.
stuff. And the interesting thing is about that is there are differences between how you might copy something from a Android to an iPhone, but essentially we just use that little port and it
Yeah,
gets us in, right?
yeah, and exactly. We can download messages, so SMS. We
And
can download photos,
and
right?
by the
Because it
way,
goes onto the screen under your. Yeah.
also with these sort of things, we're not interested in copying the digital badness that you've got on here. We're not going to be publishing your sexploits.
I don't really care, you know.
Yeah,
I just want to
exactly.
care what you're directing me to.
Yeah,
Like you got a set of photos you want me to have, or
and
you have text messages you want me to have. So this is what we do.
yeah, and I'm looking at the picture that you're telling me has got a hole in the ceiling. because the tenant above you, dropped a grand piano on it. Right?
Or maybe you got some emails that you want to share with us, so these put in there.
Yeah, all of those sort of things come on these zip drives, and they're all part and parcel of doing that. So,
and there's another person. I prefer a physical copy of documents, but I fear that the amount of physical storage space I'll require to hold files for the length of time required to hold. Do you have any advice or tips for physical space? Well, we have an office and we do have storage here, and it varies between boxes that we put in that are older materials, and then we also have file cabinets in a common area.
Let me just show you. We've got here the the archive.
See, he's being bad. Look at him. Look at his office. That's why he locks it up at night.
That's what that's my archive box that I'm preparing to actually get stored away.
I don't like having too many files in my office because it just gets to be a mess. I'd rather put them into the filing cabinet after I finish using them.
Avoid the number of files in my office because
exactly that. And the thing is, having a physical copy of the files is like a lot of us. I take it you may be old school, eh? And that's fine. I'm old school too, eh? But everybody's learning, and this is what we try to do because, and this is one of the things, like for people, where people say, I want to practice from home. Do you have another space where you can put your stuff? Sometimes you can put them in storage, but you really have to have a specialized climate controlled storage place just in case you have to go somewhere and go back to the storage facility and pick up your file and make sure it hasn't been affected by moisture or mold or any other things or mice. Hey, so these are things that you have to be really careful. Hey, but in our office, we keep everything here. It's all climate controlled in here, and everything we have to put under lock and key. So we have to have protection for people. And mind you, yes, it is, because if you've been practicing 30 years, and if I had kept every last file I had for 30 years, I think I'd have warehouses.
I think you'd own stocks in U-Haul or your local storage.
Public storage or whatever, or some kind of storage. Store safe. Store safe.
We were talking about. Remember, we were talking about confidentiality, and we've just gone off the topic a bit. And to remember that even if the lawyer or paralegal moves to another job, that confidentiality stays. So you're now at Gowling's LLP, and suddenly they say, "Oh, Angela, can you work with Joe Blow?" And you go, "Oh, sorry, Joe Blow is somebody that I've worked with. Sorry, can you work against Joe Blow? Sorry, I worked with Joe Blow, 15 years ago. I cannot."
Yeah, conflict of interest has to be kept. Yeah, even if you move firms.
Yeah.
Hey, like I've had people to have to check conflict. I had them keep the list. If they come in here and they came from another practice, or if they were practicing on their own. Okay, so I have a good idea of what their files are. I said, I don't care too much about your previous files, but I just need to know who they are so that if you're here and somebody wants to see you and it turns out that you would be in a conflict, we actually put a Chinese wall. Nobody, like you're not even there when any of this is discussed or anything is even worked on.
Well, and the other thing about that is that there's rules about that from the Law Society. And for example, if you had moved on to a new law firm, you're at firm X, and there's nothing, and so your boss comes up and says, "Angela, can you work on this particular file?" And you go, I think I know the opposing counsel, but the opposition party, but let me go check with my old employer. So now you check up old employer Legal Inc., right? And you say, "Hey, Mary, I used to work on a file. Do you know if I were to do this file for a new opposing X Inc., right?" And she can go look it up, and she can say, "Oh no, it wasn't opposing X Inc. It was X Limited, right, that you were working for, I can get why you actually had an you thought there might be a conflict of interest.
And that's why it's important to check.
Yeah. So, and in fact, not that we get many such calls, but it's better.
And we just have to be careful because we keep a whole list of contacts, clients, and I have a kind of an older list of clients and contacts just to make sure I'm not going to be barking up another tree, which is, to keep us in compliance.
Yeah. Okay. So who owes the duty?
We do. The work the professional does. They owe the duty of confidentiality. If our client wants to go out and blast all over the place about how they're in a lawsuit with X, Y, and Z, they can do so. But they cannot, we do advise them, don't do that because it could affect what comes back to you in court.
Yeah. But I can't talk about, I can't be, I have a duty to you if you were my client. I can't be talking to Rue over here. Hey, Rue, you know what? That Angela, yada, 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 right? Can't do that.
Nope, you can't.
Yeah.
But as I said, sometimes our clients have surprised us, and then they go to the media about things. And I tell people, if you want to do stuff like that, talk to us.
And even if let's say that Rue came up here to me and he said, "Hey Peter, do you happen to know Angela?" Yada yada yada, right? I can't, I can say, yeah, well, she was my client one time, but I can't talk about her.
Yeah.
It's about the limit of what I can say.
Yep, exactly. I've had people call me up at the office and they said, "Oh, it's Joseph Jones. Do you represent this guy?" And I said, "I can't even say that. I can't even say yes or no. I can't, I would say, I have a duty to confidentiality and I can't disclose that information." Okay? That's how far it goes for me. I keep it sacrosanct.
Okay. All right. So there's another section of rules here, which is the paralegal rules of conduct. And these are the rules that impact paralegals. And of particular interest here is Rule 3.03, open brackets 1, which is a paralegal shall at all times hold in strict confidence all information concerning the businesses and affairs of a client acquired in the course of professional engagement. There we go. That's how strict it is.
Yep.
Right. It says confidential. Okay. So basically our rules is not to disclose any such information to others expressly or implied unless authorized by the client, as required by law or of a tribunal of competent judgment who orders to do so, as required or provided the information to the Law Society or otherwise permitted under this rule. And there are exceptions to this, and there's exceptions to every rule, as everybody knows. And we'll talk about the exceptions a little bit.
Exceptions to the exceptions.
Yeah. And exceptions to the exceptions to the exceptions. Probably. Yeah. Okay. So the rules of professional conduct is what a lawyer has a duty, is bound under duty. And they have a lawyer. No, did I put it up there? Okay, there we go. Up there. A lawyer shall at all times hold in strict confidentiality all information concerning the business and affairs of the client acquired in the course of professional relationship, and shall not divulge any such information unless expressly or impliedly authorized by the client, as required by law or by order of a tribunal. as required to provide information to the Law Society and otherwise permitted under these rules. There we go. Pretty well identical to the paralegal rules of conduct. There's a wider scope for lawyers because they offer, they're a law firm, not a legal services firm.
Yeah, like somebody just has to split hairs and make the difference here.
Yeah, and the difference, and to be quite honest, when we're talking about this type of stuff, the confidentiality, the differences are small, right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, if anybody blabs on you, they can be in a lot of trouble. And when this basically, where this can make a great deal of sense, is that there are rules about it, of course. And for example, you're coming in in a situation, and as a legal representative, what you've got to figure out is what the story you're going to tell for your client on behalf of your client is.
Mm-hmm.
In the perfect world, it would be nice for the client to come in and say, "Hey, Peter, today my story is."
It's like a client comes in and tells us all the stories, everything that they, where they feel they might have contributed, where they feel they were wronged, that sort of thing. We put it up into a bundle and we tell them, and we develop a narrative that is favorable for our client.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, of course, we know that in any kind of situation, nobody's perfect. You don't have a case where the plaintiff is everything right and the defendant is everything wrong. Usually there's a kind of a mix between the two. In the end of the day, basically, it's who can provide the better evidence.
Yeah, and exactly. So, at the end of the day, there's a couple of things in here that note that one of the exception in here is unless it's expressly or impliedly authorized by the client. And given that we're representing people in courtrooms or tribunals,
Provide legal services. I mean, there's certain things we need to say to provide legal services, but we do that in a way that controls the narrative.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about what they may say. Look, I don't want them to know about this.
Yeah, exactly. So unless a client has said, I don't wish them to know about this, the information that is shared between the client and their legal representative is it may either be expressly or impliedly used within the context of the court case. And clearly, if you come to me because you've got a landlord and tenant matter, I'm going to be utilizing the information that I've got in relation to your landlord and tenant case. Mm-hmm. But if you subsequently come to me and you're talking about an employment matter, irrespective of whether I'm representing you on the employment matter or not, it's got nothing to do with the landlord
tenant case.
And then should never be mentioned in the landlord.
Yep. So we only talk about the employment matter for that part of your issues.
Yep.
Like I've had clients who've over the years have asked me to represent them in different types of cases. And we're always focused on the case that they are coming to me for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about exceptions, because every rule there's an exception for, right?
Yep.
So what are the exceptions to this confidentiality?
No, one of them is by law, if we have to. Disclosed by law where it's outlined, by an order of the court.
Yep.
Okay. Also with their client's permission.
Well, the other, you see, for example, if a client came into you and you've been working with a client and they started in the chair, Angela, I'm feeling so bad. I feel like I want to commit suicide, right?
Mm-hmm. And we evaluate this in terms of the seriousness of this and, that sort of thing. There may be a time when we might have to contact a family member in that situation or somebody who we could do it. We won't tell them about the confidential issues that the client has discussed, but we might need to say they're like, call someone to give them a welfare check, give them a call. Hey, I've had to do that on a couple of occasions in my life. Hey, the family member or whoever I called did not know about the legal matter I dealt with the client, because that is not part of what needs to be done here. What needs to be done is we're trying to keep this person from doing themselves in.
Yeah. And another one might well be, Angela, you know that Peter guy? I really hate that Peter guy. I'm going to murder him.
Oh, go ahead. Because you know what? I'm going to be richer.
But again, actually, so and there's a point at which it's about believability, isn't it? Because
believability. Like, say for instance, somebody that has been going on with you for a while, and they're very angry, and they know that then they're telling you that they're bringing in a knife or a gun or something, and they're going to go into that WSIB office and start going after somebody.
Actually,
I have a duty to tell that WSIB office to prepare for that and to inform security so that person doesn't go in.
The other one is the bulge in the jacket that you see, and it looks clearly like a revolver.
Yep, it's kind of shaped like a gun. Yeah, then you kind of have to tell them you can't, and I haven't had to do that, but I've had WSIB sometimes report to me that a client of mine is under security watch because they've caused trouble at the office in the past. So the client gets upset about that. And I said, look, what that means is you have to talk to me about your problems, and I go talk to WSIB about your problems, okay, until we get this sorted out, right? Because they don't want you running in there and screaming and yelling and threatening people.
Why not? That's the best fun, surely.
Yeah, so there's different ways we have to do that, and it has to be very, very narrowly scoped when you have to seek outside attention.
Yeah, the exceptions here are narrowly scoped, but of course there are some exceptions to the exceptions, aren't there?
Oh yes.
Right.
When you have to sue a client, for example, because they haven't paid their bill in like 17 years.
Yeah.
So you have to go back.
Why you didn't sue them 15 years earlier, Angela?
Yeah, exactly. That's a question. Hey, but basically you write down and it says, okay, yeah, but you can only do the collection just as much as what's required to collect the bill.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't put into the lawsuit or whatever, or the collections letters, anything that has to do with confidential information that's not relevant to the collection.
Yeah. So if your client owes you $13,000, you can take it to the collection agent. You can agree whatever the cut is, and the collection agents are going to say, "Yep, I'm going to send the Ward brothers down there, and we'll get it done for you by the weekend."
Okay.
That's information we don't want to know, right?
They're going to say that to you?
I don't think they are, but I'm jesting. People know that, right?
So I didn't know the Ward brothers were in collections. I just didn't know that.
The point being that the collection agent only needs to know that, hey, John Smith owes Peter's firm, $13,000.
Yeah, and he lives in such and such a place.
Yeah.
And
they don't ever know why he owes them.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't. They don't have to know what services specifically you did, what you won, nothing.
And again, let's say that you sell books and you're a bookseller, and you've got a person who said, I can take every book off your shelf right now, and just invoice me and I'll pay it in 10 days, and they never pay you. So again, if you're chasing them for $13,000, again, you don't need to reveal all of that information. It's just they owe you $13,000, and here's the invoice.
Yep, $13,000. Well, you have to invoice them first, and then you have to
Yeah,
try it internally, and then after that, if it
yeah,
fails, then you take it to
yeah,
collections or
of course.
sue a small claims or something.
Yeah. And so you can anybody can chase debts, right? And
Yep, exactly.
everybody has the right to chase debts.
Yep,
But
yeah, because the
yeah,
thing is, generally, I mean, especially today, like where it seems that everybody owes somebody money, and
I
then
think
that person
everybody.
owes somebody else money, and then you're not paying your bills because somebody else owes you money, and then you don't have the money to pay your bills. Then you end up.
And then the people you don't pay owe somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a big chain event.
Yeah. And of course, then when you pay your credit card, because that's the only way you can pay it, you only pay 10% of what you owe.
Yep, exactly. And this is generally what happens.
Anyway, we're off the topic here.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So going,
confidentiality. Okay, let me repeat.
yeah, let me repeat. So what I said to you matters. How do you protect my information?
We do need to protect it, and we have to put things into security, password protected, dual multi-factor authorization, to get it from the digital,
Yeah.
and that gets locked into Peter's office.
And whether you're dealing with a file like this
Hmm.
or a digital file,
Yeah.
it's all securely locked away.
And digital privacy is an important one. We're probably going to do another one on digital privacy and PERPETA
Yeah.
and some of the regulations around that. But in short, if we do digital privacy and there's digital files, first of all, staff or associates do not take files home. And if they do need to work a file at home, sometimes they do, they have access to a cloud. And we do not allow them to have copies or electronic copies on their personal devices. Although they can access the cloud when they need to access anything that's from the office. Because if you put something on your personal devices and say you leave the company, okay, after you've done that, you still have information on your personal devices that have to do with clients that you had before when you left the company, and then you're going somewhere else. This becomes a breach of confidentiality or a potential breach of confidentiality because that information should be resting with the firm and the cloud. So
Yeah.
that's why you have to have rules in place for digital privacy, digital interception, and other types of things to protect people, and also training people to detect online scams. Hey, there's a lot of those.
I think there's increasing numbers of online scams. I am just blown away by how many. I thought there was bad. We were bad with scams prior to the online land, but they seem to have gotten 1,000% worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I got something today where they had something about my email address, or I had to pay because there was so much volume in it and so forth. And I had to go into this kind of a portal they were trying to lead me to, probably to ask for my credit card information and everything else. So instead of doing that, I just
And of
sent it to
course,
my web developer because it looked pretty realistic. And I
and of
said,
course,
"Is this a scam?"
this person here has overused her email address quota
Yeah,
every day of the week, right? She's
yeah. So what we do is we send it off to my web developer who holds her email and stuff. And I said, okay, is this legit or is this a scam? I wrote
and
back, it says it looks like it's not legitimate.
yeah,
So I deleted it.
yeah. I don't even normally go that far. Anyway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Particularly if it looks really real. Like we had to call a bank one time because we had kind of a weird
Yeah.
bank deposit. I mean, but these are things that it's important to check if something looks kind of okay. I didn't order anything from these people, and they're sending you an invoice.
Well, the worst about that is we had a check from a numbered company. It was a check that was for our client, but we didn't put two and two together for a numbered company. We weren't actually looking for people who were paying our client. We were looking for people who were paying us, and we couldn't figure out why they were paying us.
Yeah.
That's
So
something can become quite harrowing when you've got confidentiality involved.
Yeah, and then you have to kind of say, okay, I'm just going to let it sit there until somebody calls and says, did you get this? Or said, did you start to work on my file yet? Or some kind of thing. And you are?
Exactly. And once you get to the bottom of it, and that was quite simply solved, because it was the company who had to pay our client, but they paid.
That's why it sat there until we figured it out.
Yeah. And then our client came in and said, I've got an appointment. Can I have an appointment for Friday so I can pick my check up? Ding dong, pick my check up. Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. And then I said, Peter, let's go into this file, look on the first page. The name of the company is right here.
And what did we not do when we were looking back to try and trace it?
Yeah, we were looking madly for it.
Yeah. But anyway, those sort of things are sent to try you. And this is actually where privacy issues, you've got to know where things come from, where they're going to.
Yeah.
And privacy issues is all important. And it's better, and we'll talk about that at another point.
And we will talk more about that in terms of keeping documentation, what's on your computer, what's on your cloud, what goes through email, what an email goes to who, and who should have access, all that sort of thing. We'll talk about it another time.
And we have already talked in some regards a few weeks ago about digital files as well.
Yep, digital files, very, very important that they need to be protected. And I work at XYZ law firm. I'm not the owner of that law firm. Okay? I have access to the cloud, or I can come into the office. Some of it might be on the computer, mostly templates. Okay? But I go onto the cloud and I have access then. I could go home onto the cloud. But then I start working at ABC law firm. I can't have all of that stuff on my own device. I can't download it to my laptop.
And again, that can be cut off by our tech people, just like that, right?
Yeah, like a click.
And that's of course where security in the cloud helps you, right?
Yeah, and exactly.
So the paralegal and all other employees of the paralegal firm owe the duty of confidentiality to every single client. So let me repeat that, including other employees of the paralegal firm. That includes ladies,
even a law clerk, a secretary,
books on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Bookkeeper overhears something. It's all confidential.
Yeah.
Or you move firms. All the clients of my previous firm, I still owe confidentiality to.
Yeah. And that's so the interesting thing is, like, for example, we were talking about records and how long we keep these files a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Retention.
About data retention and that. And we were talking about the fact that with physical files, it's about 15 years that the Law Society requires you do that. But with digital files, essentially it's forever.
Yeah, you can keep a digital file for 30 years as long as you can keep it on the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, actually, there's potential about, I always think that I'm not one of these who would say that one should rely upon the cloud. I think one should have
you have to have a backup. As our listener was pointing out about having a physical file. Yes, we have a backup.
Yeah. And
sometimes you need a physical backup too. Right?
Yeah.
So or a digital backup.
Yeah.
So not only on the cloud, but you might have like a hard drive or something, an extra hard drive that you can back things up on.
Yeah. And the physical storage, of course, when we're finished with them, this file goes into the archive. It goes into the company jail, right? It goes into the jail.
Oh, company jail?
A company jail, yeah. It's for all the archives and deadbeat clients. The deadbeat clients are buried under the archives.
That's not very nice.
Thank you. Well, I just thought of that at the time. The point being is that documents, documents, the privacy of documents, etc., is tantamount. And in fact, I was talking about privacy in another respect to somebody else today, who was concerned about how things like if you belong to like a society, a club or something, how your records in the club might well be subverted. They were talking about, if you're a member of the club, you can get gym membership. Trouble is, the gym membership, they wanted to know the name and address of every member of the club.
And this becomes a problem because that's also a violation of PIPEDA.
Yeah.
Because you have to get a consent from every single person who's on that membership list.
Yeah, and that's not permitted. Whereas, that said organization, we give a 20% discount to members of this club. Well, they should therefore be able to check somehow who's a member of the club.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so long as you can do that, we can manage that and deal with confidentiality.
There's ways of doing that.
But all of this kind of stuff is exactly the same type of issues that we face about confidentiality. Do law firms get broken into digital storage, etc.? Sometimes it happens. It has happened. I don't think it's ever happened with us, thank goodness.
Thank our lucky stars.
Yeah.
Keep changing passwords periodically. Do a multi-factor authorization.
Yeah. And the whole point is that you've got to actually do what's right for your clients, and that's a large amount about why confidentiality is vital. And the more we're entering into the electronic world, my guess is that these type of files in 20 years' time might well be less used than they are today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We may well have more dependence upon electronic devices because your tablet might well have 500,000 times as amount of storage that you have today on your cloud computer.
But with the new solid state technology that they can put in those things, and it also is something that's more durable and less likely to get corrupted.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of that kind of stuff that we're dealing with, it's improving capabilities, but again, security is a high part of it. And because security is a high part of what we're doing tech-wise, in fact, that's all, not one. If you apply all the data security rules, you're in compliance with all of the rules of the Law Society, whether it's the paralegal rules or the rules of professional conduct. You're actually going to be compliant, providing you keep your data security and you think about data security.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've just been talking there about data security from a perspective of the lawyer, the legal, the paralegal, etc. But if you're a client, think of it the other way around. Why are they spending so much time protecting my data? It's because that confidentiality matters.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's ours, and we don't want to have that messed with or lost.
Any further thoughts on confidentiality?
It's something that I consider very important. I've always had that, and it's always been more instinctive for me to keep things confidentiality. Right? And also, too, with so if your paralegal or your lawyer is married, or if they have a partner or whatever, we can't even disclose that to our spouse.
But actually, there is a funny thing is about this. I've heard a few stories about wife works for the prosecution, and put it in criminal context. Wife's a prosecutor, and husband's a defense barrister. So sometimes they can actually be across the table from one another.
Yeah.
Nothing to stop that, and the fact that the husband is fighting wife in the legal sense doesn't matter, because in fact it's Mary is fighting for the prosecution, and Janice is John is fighting for the defendant. That's the way it is, right? I said husband and wife, and then I realized I put wife and wife. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or they can have transgender.
And we're not going down that route. We're not going to.
I'll just get Dave Wheeler on. He'll talk about that
subject. We're not going to go and explore. Right. Okay. So I hope you've had a good run through, and think about why security is important to your lawyer or paralegal, and remember that we're here to help you.
We're here to help you. We're because we have the tools where we could help you. Okay. Yeah. And we need to use that to do our best.
Yeah. Okay. So just to finish up here, if you need to contact us at Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598, or you can email Angelo at angelo@weareinvictus.legal, or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal. We'll go visit the website at https://weareinvictus.legal. There we go. And don't forget the weareinvictus.legal. Okay. Mm. And this is Angela's favorite bit of the show.
Yeah. So what you heard today on Spin Legal, whether it's on this show or it's on any other of our shows in this series, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, then please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. And we'd like you to contact us, okay? But however, do contact a paralegal or a lawyer, and don't try to do things with self-help.
Well, yeah, and many things with self-help don't work very well, do they?
Yeah, because sometimes self-help results in you having to come to us.
Yeah, and we've had a few of those more. Mm-hmm. All right. So think about what you're doing, think wisely, and we're here to help you, and confidentiality is vitally important to us. All right. So I think bye, and we'll see you next week at the same time.